Every night you step into bed, your brain initiates a highly structured descent. You slide through distinct neurological phases, dropping from waking consciousness into a vulnerable threshold where the boundaries between the physical body and the mind begin to malfunction. When you enter REM sleep, your brainstem releases neurotransmitters like glycine to induce complete skeletal paralysis, ensuring you don't physically act out your dreams. But occasionally, conscious awareness wakes up while the physical body remains locked down. Finding itself trapped, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, spikes into a severe panic. Because the sensory gates to the outside room are closed, the panicked brain demands an explanation for the paralysis. To justify the physical weight on your chest, it projects a terrifying external threat directly into your field of vision. Across almost every human culture, this closed-loop panic produces the exact same hallucination, a dark, heavy shadow entity known as the night hag. Modern science dismisses this as a biological glitch, but ancient esoteric traditions, like the Gnostics and Tibetan Buddhists, mapped this exact phenomenon differently. They recorded these boundary states as the first layer of a literal cosmic gauntlet. To them, the shadow entity is an archon, a real gatekeeper designed to test the soul's awareness. The secret hidden within these ancient texts is that these entities cannot be fought with physical resistance. Survival depends entirely on experiential knowledge, what the Greeks called gnosis, and the precise verbal recognition of the guardian's true nature to move past them. If these gatekeepers yield to awareness rather than brute force, then our deepest feelings of powerlessness are actually biological misinterpretations. The fear that pins you to the mattress operates on a loop of ignorance, and that loop can be broken by specific waking intent. Practitioners of Tibetan dream yoga and Western esotericists actively seek out this paralyzed state using a protocol called WILD, or Wake-Initiated Lucid Dream. By keeping their conscious awareness entirely unbroken while their physical body falls asleep, they walk right into the threshold on purpose. The Tibetan Bardo texts offer strict instructions for what to do when you encounter the terrifying, wrathful entities guarding the transition between death and rebirth. The initiate must recognize that the fanged monster standing before them is the radiant play of their own mind, a direct projection of their own unpurified consciousness. Gnostic texts apply this same mechanism to the demiurge and the archons. When the nightmare entity approaches, the dreamer stops running. They turn around, look the monster in the eye, and issue a direct declaration. I know your name, and I know where I come from. By objectifying the threat as a garment they once wore, they strip it of its authority. This declaration triggers an immediate neurolinguistic shift. The nightmare relies on fear to maintain its form. By naming the state and refusing to panic, you starve the amygdala of its energetic fuel, causing the projection to shatter and dissolve. This shift in awareness acts as the ultimate override. The moment you objectify your fear as a physiological event rather than an external power, the gate opens. You do not have to be asleep to use this logic of confrontation. Modern society is structured with its own gatekeepers. Bosses, investors, and institutional authorities use the same tools of intimidation and pressure to keep you in a state of perceived powerlessness. As author Robert Greene outlines, these social gatekeepers often judge you based on the nonverbal frequency you project. A person who inwardly feels secure radiates a certain gaze and a relaxed posture, whereas timidity signals that you still believe in the gatekeeper's objective authority over you. To counter this, early 20th century psychologist William James developed the as-if strategy. He proposed that the physical action creates the psychological reality, not the other way around. By forcing your body to embody the precise posture, breathing, and focused gaze of a powerful person, you hijack the nervous system. The physical embodiment of confidence generates the internal psychological state, which then begins to radiate outward to everyone else in the room. Christopher Columbus used this exact strategy to secure funding from the Spanish monarchy. Despite his low birth and lack of resources, he approached the kings of Europe acting with absolute aristocratic entitlement. Because he carried himself as a peer and believed his own fiction, the gatekeepers accepted his projected reality and handed over the ships. The waking world is malleable. Entering a high-stakes environment with the bold frequency of a ruler forces social gatekeepers to adjust their perception to match the reality you are projecting. The human brain is a survival engine. It did not evolve to sit comfortably in a state of relaxation. It evolved to be fiercely inventive and strategic, but only when it is subjected to immense existential pressure. When food was scarce and danger was constant, the brain unlocked its highest creative powers. High achievers understand this trait, and they actively synthesize pressure to force their own minds to perform. In the late 1870s, Thomas Edison needed a technological breakthrough to outpace his competitors, so he engineered an artificial crisis. Edison told a major newspaper he was close to perfecting the incandescent light bulb and would soon light the entire city of New York. This was a direct attack on the massive gaslight monopolies, and he made this public guarantee years before he actually had a working prototype. His team at Menlo Park was stunned by the public deadline, but the risk of total public ruin and the loss of funding created a state of extreme psychological urgency. This forced a level of persistence and detail that normally takes decades, allowing them to deliver the invention within 5 years. True visionaries ignore the instinct to wait for safe conditions. They deliberately summon the threat of failure to push their minds into the focused, high-frequency state required to resolve complex technical deadlocks. Staring down a night hag in a state of paralysis and confronting a massive corporate competitor utilize the same logic of confrontation. Both require the individual to recognize the subjective nature of the threat before they can act against it. If you hesitate, if you flinch, if it intimidates you, you feed the illusion. Your fear validates the boundaries and keeps you trapped in a cycle of passive powerlessness. Reality is a projection that yields to the strongest frame. It is a malleable landscape that bows to the clarity of a sovereign consciousness. The gatekeepers are only there to test if you possess the recognition to pass. When you project the frequency of a king, the doors to the world effortlessly swing open.